My name is Sophie Hart, and the day I learned why saying no is self-love was the day I stood in my Sydney apartment, staring at a group chat that had once been my lifeline but had become a noose. It was a humid Saturday evening, the kind where the air clings to your skin like regret, and my phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from my so-called friends, Laura, Jess, and Emma, demanding I drop everything to plan Laura's engagement party. "Sophie, you're the organized one," Laura typed, followed by a string of heart emojis. "You've got this." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my chest tight with the weight of years spent saying yes to them, always at the cost of myself. But that night, as I typed no and hit send, I wasn't just refusing a task. I was cutting a chain they'd wrapped around me for a decade, one they thought I'd never break. And when I exposed their lies to the world they cared so much about, I didn't just take back my time. I took back my life. I grew up in a quiet suburb of Sydney, the middle child in a family that valued harmony above all else. My parents taught me to be the peacemaker, the one who smoothed arguments and made sure everyone was okay. "You're so good at bringing people together, Sophie," Mum would say, her smile warm but heavy with expectation. I carried that role into my friendships, especially with Laura, Jess, and Emma, who I met at university. We were a tight-knit group, or so I thought. Late-night study sessions, beach trips, shared dreams of conquering the world. I was the planner, the one who booked restaurants, organized birthdays, mediated their fights. They called me the glue. And I wore the title like a badge, proud to be needed, to be the one they relied on. But being the glue came with a cost I didn't see until it was too late. I was always the one saying yes, to covering bar tabs when Jess forgot her wallet, to staying up until 3 a.m. editing Emma's work presentations, to dropping everything to help Laura through her endless relationship dramas. They'd thank me with hugs and promises. "We'll make it up to you, Soph." But those promises were as empty as the wine bottles we left behind. I told myself it was fine, that this was what friendship looked like. I ignored the resentment bubbling under my skin, the way my own dreams, of starting a graphic design business, of traveling, of having a life outside their needs, kept slipping further away. By 28, I was a freelance graphic designer, scraping by on small gigs while working a part-time job at a cafe to cover rent. My portfolio was half-finished, my savings non-existent, because every spare moment went to them. Laura's last-minute wedding mood boards. Jess's emergency moves to new flats. Emma's endless requests for free designs for her startup. They knew I was stretched thin, but they didn't care. "You're so good at this," they'd say, their voices sweet as syrup. "We couldn't do it without you." And I believed them, because I wanted to believe I was indispensable. The first crack came a year ago, at Laura's birthday dinner. I'd spent weeks planning it, booking a rooftop bar, designing custom menus, even paying the deposit out of my own pocket because Laura swore she'd pay me back. The night was perfect, fairy lights twinkling, everyone laughing. But when the bill came, Laura shrugged and said, "Oh, Soph, can you cover it? I'm a bit short." Jess and Emma nodded, their eyes sliding away. I paid, my credit card groaning, and told myself it was a one-off. But then Laura posted on Instagram, gushing about the best night ever, with photos of her laughing, glass raised, no mention of me. When I asked about the money, she laughed. "Chill, Sophie, it's just money. You know I'm good for it." She wasn't. None of them were. Over the years, I'd lent them thousands. £200 here, £500 there, small amounts that added up to a hole in my savings. They'd borrow for rent, for trips, for emergencies, that always seemed to involve new dresses or concert tickets. I kept a mental tally, but asking for repayment felt like breaking an unspoken rule. The one time I pushed, Jess snapped. "God, Sophie, why are you so obsessed with money? We're friends." I swallowed the hurt, said sorry, and paid for her coffee. But the real betrayal wasn't the money. It was the way they used me, then discarded me. Last summer, I hit a breaking point. I'd been up all night finishing a design for Emma's startup, a logo she swore was urgent for a pitch to investors. I sent it at 4 a.m., bleary-eyed, only to get a curt reply. "Looks okay, but I went with someone else. Thanks anyway." No payment, no apology. That same week, Laura asked me to plan a weekend getaway for the group, then forgot to invite me. I saw the photos on Instagram. Them laughing on a beach in Byron Bay, caption besties forever. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't there. I sat in my tiny flat, staring at those photos, my chest aching like I'd been punched. I'd given them everything, my time, my money, my energy, and they didn't even notice when I wasn't there. I was their errand girl, their bank, their therapist, but never their equal. And I'd let them make me that way, because I thought saying yes was what made me valuable. That's when I started saying no in my head. Not out loud, not yet, but in the quiet of my thoughts. I began to imagine a life where I wasn't their doormat. I started keeping records, not out of spite, but survival. Screenshots of their texts, begging for favors or money. Receipts of payments I'd made. A spreadsheet of every time I dropped everything for them. It was a ledger of my own erasure, proof of how much I'd given up to be the glue. The group chat that Saturday evening was the final straw. Laura's engagement party was 3 weeks away, and they expected me to plan it. Venue, catering, decorations, all of it. "You're so good at this stuff, Sophie," Emma wrote. "It'll be perfect if you do it." Jess chimed in. "Yeah, don't let Laura down, she's stressed." I stared at the messages, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, my heart racing. I typed "I'm busy. Someone else can do it," then deleted it. I typed it again. Then for the first time in 10 years I sent it. The chat went silent. Then Laura texted. "Seriously? You're bailing on me?" Jess, "Wow Sophie, that's cold." Emma, "I thought you were our rock." Their words were a chorus of guilt, but this time, I didn't buckle. I typed, "I've planned every event for years. I'm done. Good luck." Then I muted the chat and turned off my phone. My hands shook, but not with fear, with power. I'd said no. And I wasn't done. Saying no was just the beginning. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt. The sting of being used, the humiliation of being invisible. They'd built their lives on my sacrifices, parading their perfect friendships while I faded into the background. If I was going to take back my life, I needed to expose them, not just to me, but to everyone they cared about impressing. I started with the evidence I'd already collected. My spreadsheet was meticulous. Dates, amounts, favors, screenshots. I had texts from Laura promising to pay me back for her birthday dinner, followed by her buying a 300-pound dress the next week. I had emails from Jess asking me to cover her rent, then photos of her at a music festival, wristband glowing. I had Emma's urgent design requests, followed by her hiring a professional firm while I worked for free. It was a map of their selfishness, and I was going to make sure everyone saw it. But I needed more than screenshots. I needed their own words, their own voices, admitting what they'd done. So I started recording. Not illegally, just my phone, tucked in my bag during our meetups. They still thought I was their loyal Sophie, so they invited me for coffee, for drinks, always with a hint of pity now that I'd flaked, on the engagement party. I let them talk, let them dig their own graves. Laura complained about how stressful planning her party was without me. "I mean, Sophie, you always made it look so easy," she said, sipping her latte. "I don't know how you did it." I smiled, said, "Years of practice," and let the recorder run. Jess was even more careless. Over wine, she laughed about how she'd borrowed 500 pounds from me last year and never paid it back. "You're too nice, Soph," she said, her eyes glinting. "You never make a fuss." I nodded, my stomach churning, but kept my voice light. "Guess I'm just generous." Emma was the worst. She bragged about using my designs to pitch her startup, then hiring someone else because investors want a name, not a favor. Each word was a brick in the wall I was building. I didn't just want to hurt them. I wanted their world, the one they'd curated with Instagram filters and fake smiles, to collapse. They cared about their image, about being the fun group everyone envied. Laura's engagement was the talk of our social circle. Jess's influencer side hustle was gaining traction, and Emma's startup was her ticket to being someone. I knew exactly where to hit them. Their reputations. The engagement party was the perfect stage. Laura had invited half of Sydney's young professionals, friends, colleagues, influencers, even a few local bloggers. It was her moment to shine, to show off her perfect life. Jess and Emma would be there, basking in the glow. I wasn't invited, not officially, but I knew Laura would expect me to show up anyway, to support her. She'd even texted me a week before. "Soph, you're still coming, right? It won't be the same without you." I'd replied, "Wouldn't miss it." And meant it, but not for the reasons she thought. I spent the weeks before the party preparing. I turned my spreadsheet into a presentation, clean and professional, like something I'd designed for a client. Screenshots, text messages, bank transfers, audio clips, each piece labeled with dates and names. I called it the cost of friendship. I burned it onto a USB drive and tested it on my laptop, making sure every slide was perfect. I practiced my speech, keeping my voice calm but sharp, the way I'd heard lawyers speak in podcasts. I didn't want to sound bitter. I wanted to sound like truth. The night before, I barely slept. My flat was a mess of coffee cups and post-it notes, my laptop glowing with the final version of the presentation. I pictured Laura's face when the first slide appeared, Jess's smirk fading, Emma's eyes widening. I didn't feel glee, just resolve. They'd taken so much from me. But they'd also taught me something. People only get away with what you let them. I wasn't letting them anymore. The engagement party was at a chic rooftop venue in Surrey Hills, all string lights and overpriced cocktails. I arrived late, slipping in through a side entrance, my USB drive in my clutch. The room was packed, maybe 100 people laughing, clinking glasses, posting selfies with hashtag Laura loves Liam. Laura was at the center, radiant in a white dress, her fiancé Liam by her side, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Jess was taking photos, probably for her Instagram, and Emma was schmoozing with a group of investors, her startup pitch in full swing. They didn't see me at first, and I was glad. I needed to blend in until the moment was right. The venue had a projector for slideshows. Laura had planned a montage of her and Liam's love story. I'd done enough events for her to know how these setups worked. During a lull, I approached the AV guy, a bored 20-something scrolling on his phone. "Hey," I said, smiling. "Laura asked me to add something to the slideshow. Can I plug this in?" I held up the USB, my voice casual. He shrugged, handed me the cable, and went back to his phone. My hands were steady as I connected the drive. My heart pounding but my mind clear. The slideshow started, and the crowd cooed over photos of Laura and Liam. First date, holidays, the proposal. I stood near the back, my clutch tight in my hands, waiting for the final slide, where I'd added my presentation. When it ended, Laura took the microphone, beaming. "Thank you all for being here," she said. "This means so much to us. If anyone wants to say a few words, the mic's open." That was my cue. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Laura's smile faltered when she saw me, but she handed me the mic, her eyes flickering with unease. "Sophie," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "So glad you made it." I took the mic, my voice steady. "I wouldn't miss it, Laura. You've always said I'm the organized one, right?" A few people laughed, thinking I was about to give a sweet speech. I turned to the projector, clicked the remote, and my presentation lit up the screen. The cost of friendship. The first slide was a screenshot of Laura's text, promising to pay me back for her birthday dinner. "I've known Laura, Jess, and Emma for 10 years, I said, my voice carrying over the sudden hush. I planned their birthdays, their trips, their lives. I lent them money, gave them my time, my work. And this is what I got in return." I clicked to the next slide. A bank transfer, £500 to Jess, followed by her festival photos. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jess froze, her phone still raised. "Sophie, what are you doing?" Laura hissed, stepping toward me. I ignored her, clicking again. An audio clip played. Emma's voice, bragging about using my designs for free. "They called me their rock," I said. "But they meant their doormat." Another slide. Texts from all three, begging for favors, promising repayment, never delivering. The room was silent now, all eyes on the screen. Laura's face was white, her hands clenched. Jess tried to laugh, saying, "This is a joke, right?" But her voice cracked. Emma just stared, her investor friends stepping away from her. I kept going, slide after slide, their own words damning them. The final slide was simple. A photo of the four of us, years ago, laughing at a beach. "I loved you," I said, looking at them. "But you didn't love me. You used me. And I'm done." I set the mic down. The silence was heavier than applause. Laura tried to speak, her voice shaking. This is a misunderstanding. Sophie's upset but no one was listening. People were whispering, pulling out phones, some glaring at her, others at Jess and Emma. Liam looked at Laura like he was seeing her for the first time. I walked out, leaving the USB plugged in, the screen still glowing with their betrayal. I didn't go home right away. I drove to the beach, the one we'd gone to as friends, and sat on the sand, the waves loud in the dark. My phone buzzed with notifications, texts from mutual friends, some shocked, some supportive, some angry. How could you do that to Laura? One said. Thank you for saying what I couldn't, said another. I turned it off. The air was cool, the salt sharp in my nose. For the first time in years, I felt light, like I'd dropped a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it wasn't mine. The fallout was swift. Laura's engagement party was the talk of our circle, but not for the reasons she'd hoped. The blogger she'd invited posted about the drama, sharing snippets of my presentation that someone had recorded. Jess's Instagram followers plummeted. People don't trust influencers who don't pay their debts. Emma's startup pitch fell apart. Her investors backed out, citing trust issues. Laura tried to spin it, posting a tearful Instagram story about misunderstandings and mental health, but the comments were brutal. Pay Sophie back. You used her. Own it. They tried to fight back. Jess sent me a furious voicemail. You humiliated us, Sophie. We were friends. Emma texted. You've ruined my career. I hope you're happy. Laura showed up at my flat, crying, begging me to fix this. I looked at her, the woman I'd once called my sister, and said, I'm not your glue anymore. Figure it out yourself. Then I closed the door. I didn't get my money back, not all of it. Jess sent £200 with a snarky note. Hope this helps you sleep. Emma offered to work something out if I'd retract my claims. I didn't respond. The money wasn't the point anymore. The point was them knowing they couldn't walk over me and keep their shine. My life changed after that night. I started saying no, not just to them, but to anyone who asked too much. I poured my energy into my graphic design business, taking on clients who valued my work, not just my willingness. My portfolio grew, my inbox filled with inquiries, and for the first time, I felt like I was building something for me. My parents, who'd always worried about my people-pleasing, called to say they were proud. You stood up, Sophie, Dad said, his voice thick. That's my girl. I saw Laura once more months later at a cafe. She was alone, her engagement ring gone, her face thinner. She didn't approach me, just stared, then looked away. I didn't feel triumph, just quiet. She wasn't my enemy anymore. She was just a lesson. Saying no wasn't just about refusing a task. It was about choosing myself, about drawing a line no one could cross. They thought I'd always say yes, that I'd always carry their weight. But I showed them, and myself, that I was worth more than their demands. I wasn't their glue. I was my own foundation. If you enjoyed this revenge story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from.